Emotions are your enemy. See, I've been a bit surprised by this remark in a way because, as of my functionality and as someone who sees things as close to the true reality as they can be perceived by my awareness, this feels a bit like psychiatry. See, emotions and the mental are more or less kind of the same. There are energies which have a certain waveform. The difference is the mind, or what we call the mental, is very volatile. Any thought that you take, the very next second, or even during the same second, you can simply contradict yourself, or you can simply change your state of mind from one second to another. When it comes to emotions, when they usually settle down and you start feeling them, well, it's gonna take a while usually till they go away. See, emotions are usually the result of something. Someone reacts to a certain situation, and the reaction is mental and emotional. You have a certain attachment towards a certain event that happened in your life. Most likely you don't remember it. Or some kind of traumas from previous lifetimes. It can be interpretable. I'm not gonna say which one of those is. But it can be at least a percentage of these two, as well as numerous other situations. When something happens and your subconscious reminds you of this, the point is the reaction that you get is unconscious, because reaction means unconscious response towards a certain stimulus or a set of stimuli. This principle society uses, it is said to be called problem, then reaction, then solution. Society creates a certain problem, people, especially the ignorant, will instantly react, and then the same-sex society comes with a so-called savior, a so-called group of people who have the solution. But usually they won't give you the full solution, because the full solution means a full closure of the problem, and a problem creates more money than its solution. If they want to step it up a notch, if they want to go the next level, the solution they give you will be another hidden problem, and so on and so forth. These are pillars of manipulation that, well, people may not know much about, or people may know a bit about those, but may not be aware of those. I've been saying for a long time that knowing something doesn't mean being aware of something. And the point is, when you are aware of something, it is constantly a part of you. When you know something, you may forget it temporarily. So, depending on your state of mind, you can think of that, or you cannot think of that as well. It is like any other state of mind. States of mind, you can take them, well, since I also deal with programming, I've always compared this with a state machine. Now, a state machine is what one can call a multiple number of states. A state is basically a stance or whatever you want. Okay? A state is, well, let's say just like we have states of mind like being depressed, being, feeling poor, feeling abundant, feeling victimizing. These are states that, they have certain conditions, just like in programming. Without at least one condition being true, such states don't trigger. Now, these states of mind usually trigger unconsciously because, well, we people mostly function unconsciously. We function based on impulses and based on the base functionality of the mind. When you have something like that, you'll always react to certain things. Now, when something happens, right, that is basically the trigger. The result of that will be either a reaction or a response action, right? A reaction is always unconscious. Something scares you, you're unconscious, right? You're always going to be afraid, so you're going to react in fear. If you're more conscious, if you're wise, and if you're well trained, and situations simply don't move you, emotions don't move you that easily, well, the point is very simple. Most likely you will take a response action. Response action is a personal term that refers to responsibility, right? When you say you take responsibility, responsibility is a compound in English that is made out of two words, response and ability. Now, responsibility is your ability to respond to stimuli, okay? Now, obviously, not all situations allow you to simply respond them fully consciously. Some situations may be, I don't know, too intimidating or too much in a certain way, but the point is the ability to respond consciously to a certain solution, to a certain problem, therefore find a certain set of solutions. The point is, this is something that you're going to do with awareness, because responsibility is the death of all ignorance, right? Ignorance means you don't care how much you suffer, you don't care how much other people suffer, right? You can see people nowadays, they just wander around, they don't care where they go, they don't know where they go. Someone falls dead or faints because of whatever reason on the ground, most people will just not take that into account, or they just gather around like, broken AIs in a video game that simply are stuck in between two states that constantly become true or false, and most likely they will just sit there waiting for a patch to fix them. In reality, it's nothing else than, well, those waiting for someone to take initiative, because you're taught by your parents that you're never good enough. You go to school, you're never good enough as well. None of the things in society teach you to have responsibility, because if you take responsibility, you're gonna first instinctively take responsibility to make your life better. A sick society doesn't want you to have a good life, because you'll no longer be conducting self-destruction. If you no longer conduct self-destruction, you're no longer gonna need the medical treatment, because a sick society can only open you when you are equally sick, at least equally sick. So emotions, they are the result. If you allow them to take hold of you, it means you are allowing something to control you. You're basically on autopilot. That is basically what this sick society wants, because in a sick society, you're never taught to take responsibility. I see adolescents nowadays, even when they're playing their favorite games, they still don't know what to do. They're asking someone else, and usually people respond as, I don't know. It's usually a game. A game is nothing else than a repetitive set of actions. More or less, they are repetitive, and every time you do certain things, they are gonna repeat more or less. Sure, you may unlock new skills, new weapons, new things, but they are basically repetitive, irrespective of how simple or complex they are. Usually, they have a certain sense of repetitiveness, and when you get a hold of them, there is basically nothing new that can happen, right? When you complete the games, there is nothing new to happen in those unless new content is added. Life in real life, these aspects, they are not always the same. Sure, ignorant people will make them be the same. You will always see people who are easily scared and who are, emotionally unstable. They will always react to literally everything. Yes, that means karma, which means a cycle. They are going through certain cycles, and, well, until they transcend those cycles, their life will be simply repetitive. But life itself and the way things happen, they will not be repetitive. Only us humans, since we have the greatest impact on this planet, only us humans can dictate whether we turn things repetitive. A sick society is nothing else than a huge number of cycles. If you take into account, the life of all people is nothing else than a repetition. Your parents had the same life as you have. They've been to behavioral reprogramming, or, well, how you call schooling systems. I call it behavioral reprogramming and reformatting, but usually my names are very long, so I prefer using human terms. And, well, then you go to work, right? You go through legalized slavery, and, well, so on and so forth. And most likely you'll get a lot of frustrations. No one cares about you. You'll probably not care about you as well. And you'll find yourself at an old age, somewhat conscious of all the lies you've been through, and, well, most likely hoping that you still have someone left to take you to your burial place once perishing occurs. So, emotions, are they an enemy in your life or not? See, nothing is an enemy in your life. Everything is nothing but a tool. Your emotions are the result of your life. how you respond, consciously or unconsciously, to situations. This is done consciously or unconsciously, as I said, and it is done emotionally, psychologically, mentally, right? Because we need meaning, right? The brain that we have requires meaning. This society has a need for meaning because without it, you can't try to make yourself understood. This is the only reason why I'm using words, to try to make myself understood by others, to see that there are better ways in life, more profound ways of perceiving existence, and, well, life as a whole. Now, the point is, emotions are not your enemy. See, a sick society will always promote cancer upon you. Cancer is when something turns against you. When you perceive your emotions as the enemy, your emotions are part of you. Irrespective of how much you accept it or not, they are a part of you. They are that which accurately tell you how you are feeling and how things in your life make you feel, right? When you ignore these emotions, well, you're always gonna suffer. So you'll need distractions when you suffer. Guess what this sick society is best at? Well, distracting you from who you are, distracting you from your pains. Everything happens just like that. Entertainment, whatever you want, advertisements, everything in this sick society is perfectly aimed at keeping you dumb, keeping you away from who and what you are, from realizing own potential, and, well, realizing that there is so much more than what your eyes can see and what your ears can see, right? I believe in synesthesia, that's why I usually use the word see, even for ears and such, because technically I prefer taking this body and all the sensations that this body gets as a certain sense of a collective set, right? Now, obviously, what you see, what you hear, what you feel, these aren't the only things that this body can offer. This body is by default limited to only these because you need certain levels of awareness to become strong enough to perceive things beyond this, right? Because if you are suddenly capable of seeing or feeling certain things beyond this primitive level that we all have, well, imagine that sooner or later, well, you're gonna remember things from your past lives, or you're probably suddenly becoming capable of seeing ghosts and things like that. If someone is not emotionally and psychologically prepared, that can actually break them. Nature has thousands of layers of protection on us. They have to be bypassed through special preparations on a spiritual, mental, psychological, and especially emotional level. If you're gonna live your whole life believing that emotions are your enemy, well, you'll believe that a small part of you is your enemy. So technically, when you fight a small part of you, that is technically cancer. It doesn't mean that you will actually suffer from cancer, but that's not gonna promote positive energies in your body, right? That's not gonna promote a positive lifestyle, right? Because when you hate a small part of you, well, you're gonna create fractures in you. Fractures mean separation, and you'll also seek to separate yourself from people who remind you of those small fractions within you. When you live in fractures, right, when you live away from people, you will feel alone and frustrated because you're social people, right? You're all people, and we're humans. We humans are social beings. They say we are 8 billion people on this planet, so why on earth should anyone live separated, right? But apparently this sick society can only rule us if we are alone. Why do you think their plans wanted, full separation, right? So-called social distancing, see? And teaching you, and especially children, that, staying alone is the best way, right? Because, see, if emotions are your enemies, you will instantly embrace ignorance, because in ignorance, you don't care how you feel anymore. And that's why ignorance feels so good for people, because they no longer suffer, right? They actually numb themselves down enough that they no longer suffer, but ultimately the point is very simple. If you want to no longer suffer, take responsibility in your life and make it better. It is always a hard thing, but successful people always do the hard things so that their life becomes easier. Simple-minded people always do the simple things, and that is why their life becomes harder. Your emotions are nothing else than tools. You can use them to see how they make you feel. What triggers those emotions? Use them as introspection tools, just like I use my mind. Whatever thoughts go through my mind, I know that none of them is mine. I have acquired them from numerous people, be it from the internet or from people specifically around me. But the point is very simple. It doesn't matter whom I took those from. The point is they are not mine. So identifying with those thoughts, with those emotions, is a great downfall. Because when you identify with something, that is your greatest downfall, because you will believe it as if it is your own. Nothing is yours. Even your children, they are not yours. They come through us, right? But they are not ours, right? If something in this world would be yours, you would take it beyond death. The only thing that is yours then that you will take beyond death is your karma, right? The ancestral karma that you have accumulated, your own karma from this life, and so on and so forth. So emotions, they are not your enemy. They're just tools that you can see, you can use to see what things trigger you, what things annoy you, right? To see where your ignorance lies, because ignorance lies everywhere. Every time you react to something and you don't take responsible action, well, that is unconsciousness, that is ignorance. You are ignoring how you feel, you're ignoring how you should consciously act, and you're just acting based on impulses. If you want to live the life of an animal, if you want to live the life of your ancestors, right? I'm not saying that ancestors are animals, but this society is highly represented by ignorant people. Ignorant people, well, conscious and unconscious people, we're also animals. We humans are animals. But we can choose to transcend their behavior and act on things beyond the physical limitations, or we can simply live the life of our ancestors and, well, life of animals. Because when you live in full ignorance, you're indistinguishable from an animal. Whatever happens, it's easy to predict how you'll react. Something scares you, you'll react on that. Something would make you feel pleasure, well, you will simply react to that as well, and you will embrace it as a comfort zone, and so on and so forth. All this being said, you are appreciated. Take care. Ferenc Board signing out.